There were a lot of great questions this week. I'm working my way through them now. I had something come up, took up Monday and a lot of Tuesday morning. But I wanted to get this video out as soon as possible so you get a chance to watch it. There were a lot of questions on the income and substitution effects, which makes sense because it's not just a tricky subject, but both of them occur at the same time. So it's really hard to analyze the effect of one of them without including the other. So then it starts to, really muddy the waters. Um, but I'm going to walk through and give you some more information, hopefully shed some more light on this subject. So let's start at the beginning, kind of think of an example. So let's say that you're paid hourly and you're able to choose how many hours you work. So it's not perfectly realistic, but it is a start. Um, so you could work more hours and earn more money. But if you did that, that means there's less time for everything else. So maybe it's sleeping in, going out to hang out with friends, watching Netflix at home, or just simply relaxing. This is the basic idea of the labor leisure trade-off, that every extra hour of work earns you more income, but it costs you an hour of leisure. Now, let's suppose your wage increases, say from $20 an hour to $30 an hour. How are you going to respond? So let's start with the substitution effect. So think of the world whispering to you, leisure just got more expensive. When your wage rises, every hour you spend not working costs you more money in foregone earnings. So this makes leisure relatively more expensive because you're giving up more. So you tend to substitute away from leisure and towards more hours of work. In other words, the substitution effect pushes you to work more because each hour of work buys you more goods, more savings, and more security. So picture two parallel worlds. One, you earn $20 an hour and you can afford a modest lifestyle. And the other, you earn $30 an hour, and that same hour of work now buys you dinner and a movie instead of just a plain sandwich. So in that higher wage world, work feels more valuable. So you lean in towards working a bit more. Now let's go to the income effect. When you become richer, you might decide to buy more leisure because leisure is one of the nicest goods money can buy. When your wage rises, even if you work the same number of hours, your income is going to increase. This means that you can afford to take off more time if you value leisure more highly. The income effect makes you want to work less because you can maintain the same standard of living with fewer hours of work. So imagine you've been grinding at 50 hours a week at work just to pay the bills. Suddenly your pay doubles. You might think, hey, I don't need to work that much anymore. I can actually take a Saturday off and enjoy myself, have a real weekend. So let's put both of these together. When your wage goes up, two things happen at once and they pull you in opposite directions. And that's what we see going on here. The income effect and the substitution effect has each one of them dominating. For the substitution effect, work just became more rewarding. So each hour you don't work now costs you even more in foregone income. Leisure has become more expensive. If you think about it like an economist, you might say, I can get more consumption for every hour of work. So maybe I should work more hours. So think of it this way. You have two voices in your head. One saying work more, time is more valuable now. The other saying work less, you've earned it. So which one wins? And this was another, several of the questions kind of asked about this is when is the income effect going to dominate the substitution effect or vice versa? And a lot of that depends on the person's preferences. I know that's not what you want to hear. You want to hear more of an objective answer. Um, but it depends on who you are and where you are in life. So when I was in college, I definitely had the substitution effect dominate. At that point, being able to afford to do more, was really valuable for me. Now my wife and I are looking at starting a family, so I can easily imagine a future where I'm happy with an increase in income, but I don't want to work any more hours. The opposite, the income effect will dominate. So often for younger workers, they want to earn more to save up, to build a future, afford a house or buy a car. So the substitution effect dominates. But for older workers or people who value time with their family more than the extra paycheck, maybe they have really, really high salaries, the income effect can dominate. So it's about what you value more at the margin, more stuff or more time. And this is something that economists actually wrestle with quite a bit when we're looking at, the labor market, how people respond to changes in income. whether the income or substitution effect will dominate. So just to sort of wrap it up, to summarize this, put a little bow on it. In the real world, will income or substitution effect dominate? The short answer is it depends on the person and the situation. When the substitution effect dominates, people work more as their wages rise because leisure is now more expensive. And the payoff from working an extra hour feels worth it. So again, people earlier mid-career trying to build up savings or reach a financial goal. But when the income effect dominates, people work less as wages rise because they can now afford to buy more leisure. That's something we tend to see among higher earners or people later in their career. They might think I'm doing fine financially. I'd rather have the time to enjoy. So it's not like there's a single rule where one dominates over the other. For most workers, the two effects roughly offset each other. So a small wage change doesn't really lead to huge change in hours worked in either direction. But it's when you get to the extremes that you really see one dominate over the other. So younger or lower income workers responding more to the substitution effect, and older or wealthier workers to the income effect. So here we see the income effect dominating on the left. Note that the indifference curves kind of increase more horizontally. So from U0 to U1 kind of shifts more over. In that case, the person is going to engage in more leisure after the increase in their wages. When the substitution effect dominates, it's going to look more like this, where the indifference curve, U0 starts out down here, same place, but this U1, the second indifference curve, it's more like it's straight up. In that case, it's going to decrease the hours of leisure. People will end up working more. Now, I also got a few questions about something else this picture can help us answer. So when wages increase, why does that cause the line to turn instead of shifting up? So this is a good question because it really gets at the heart of working with this model. And I'm always happy to get questions about that if you're not 100% sure. It could be what's happening or wanting to know the underlying mechanism. So if the wage line would shift straight upwards, so say we start with this line down here, that's the original wage of $10. If it would shift up, that would just increase this point E here, the endowment point. So in other words, that would be an increase in non-labor income, like winning the lottery. If the wage rate increases, like we see here, the curve turns on the endowment point. So E stays exactly the same. There's no change in non-labor income, but it rotates up now to this higher slope. It rotates around E because the slope is the wage rate. So in this case, this was $10 per hour, and the wage increased to $20 per hour. So that's why we see it shift up, become more steep. Now, the reason why it's negative gets into the weeds a little bit because this is hours of leisure. So that's the opposite of the hours worked. So that's what causes it to flip. But the slope here shows the trade-off, exactly how we want to imagine it. So with the new wage rate of $20 here, negative 20, for each additional hour worked, that's going to be 1 hour less of leisure. You're going to go up a little bit. You'll go up $20 because the slope is negative 20.